अनादिर अनादिर आदिकृत अव्ययः जनम जनेन जनयान मर्यान मृत्युनानंदकम सो अनंदो अंधकर कालो अनादिरादिकृत अव्ययः जनम जनेन जनयम मारयान मृत्युना अंधकम सो अनंदो अंधकर कालो अनादिरादिकृत अव्ययः जनम जनेन जनयान na Marayan Murtyunanandakam. Synonyms. Sa, that, Andaha, endless, Andakaraha, destroyer, Kalaha, time, Anadi, without beginning, Adikrit, the creator, Avyaha, not liable to change, Janam, persons, Janena, by persons, Janayan, creating, Maraya, destroying, Mrityuna, by death, Andakam, the Lord of death. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The eternal time factor has no beginning and no end. It is a representative of Supreme Personality of Godhead. The maker of the criminal world. It brings about the end of the phenomenal world. It carries on the work of creation by bringing one individual into existence from another. And likewise, it dissolves the universe by destroying even the Lord of Death, Yamaraj. By the influence of eternal time, which is a representative of Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Father begets a son and the Father dies by the influence of cruel death. But by the time's influence, even the Lord of cruel death is killed. In other words, all the demigods within the material world are temporary, like ourselves. Our lives last for 100 years at the most. And similarly, although their lives may last for millions and billions of years, the demigods are not eternal. No one can live within this material world eternally. The phenomenal world is created, maintained, and destroyed by the finger signal of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, a devotee does not desire anything in this material world. A devotee desires only to serve the Supreme Personality of God. This servitude exists eternally. The Lord's exists eternally, His servitor exists eternally, and the service exists eternally. Thus, the end of the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 29th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Explanation of Devotional Service by Lord Kapila. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjanashlakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Bharyam Dadati Supadandikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yudapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunathanidam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaidam Savadudam Parijana Sahidam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalidam Shri Vishaka Nidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanda Radha Kanda Namostude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarupasya Kripa Sindhubheva cha Padidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Nityananda Udendendur Vasudha Pranavallabha Jnanava Jivida Badhi Krishna Prema Prada Prabho Padmavadi Sudha Sriman Sachinandana Purvajaha Bhavonmatta Jagatradarekta Gaura Kalevaraha Om Namo Namo Niruddhar Shri Geshindriyatmane Namaha Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nuvurtatmane नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते लोकनाथ स्वामिनामिने नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनामिने नमस्ते सरस्वत देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे हरि ओम तत्सत. So thank you, dear devotees, for joining today. We were going through this chapter, and today we are concluding this chapter, which is titled as Explanation of Devotional Service by Lord Kapila. So we can see that in the beginning of this chapter, Mother Devahuti inquired from the Supreme Lord about please describe the eternal time, which is your form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Kapila Dev concluding and replying to that question, answering, what is eternal time? And also in the previous section, also mentioned about how this eternal time works. So here, Kapila Dev says, the eternal time factor has no beginning and no end. It is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, maker of the criminal world. It brings about the end of the phenomenal world, carries on the work of creation by bringing one individual into existence from another. Likewise, it dissolves the universe by destroying even the Lord of Death, Yamaraj. So we can see that how this influence of time, or the time factor of the time, how it works in this cosmic world. So it is mentioned that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is no time influence in the spiritual realm, spiritual world, but that works in the material realm or in this cosmic world. So that's why Kapila Dev mentioned eternal time factor has no beginning and no end. It is the Supreme Lord Himself. Another Govinda, the Supreme Lord Himself is another. There is no beginning. Other, there is no end. Another, there is no end. There is no beginning for the Supreme Lord. Similarly, this time factor is the Supreme Lord Himself. It is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the maker of the criminal world. So we know that the Srila Prabhupada gives the example of that the prison house. So prison generally considered as for the criminals. So we are all in this prison house of this material world. So that's why it is referring here as the criminal world. And the eternal time factor influence in so many ways that in our life. So in the Brahma Samhita, it is mentioned that Ekchakshuresha Savida Sagala Grahana Bhaka Samasta Suramurta Sanjaya Brahmadi Sambrita Kala Chakra. So this Kala Chakra, or the eternal time Kala Chakra, which is a wheel of time, or eternal wheel of time, which influences in everything, even an atom. Which the influence of this time factor, even there is in an atom that way, which is moving even. And as mentioned that, the Brahma says that I worship the Supreme Lord Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whose control even the sun, which is considered to be the eye of the Lord, rotates within the fixed orbit, eternal time, fixed orbit. So sometimes we say that this orbit, the scientific name called orbit, but it's nothing but the wheel of time. This is called the Kala Chakra. This is the orbit, which is Kala Chakra, or the influence of the time which moves everything in this world. So there are many places, even into this same canto, the 5th chapter, Vidura, they're asking Maitreya about this. And Vidura is also inquiring from Maitreya that, O Lord, greatly learned sage, please kindly describe the eternal time, which is another form of the Supreme Lord, the wonderful actor. So here it is, eternal time is, Vidura is understood that he's an wonderful actor. So we know that in a drama. So in the director, behind the scene of the director makes everything possible in which way that even the curtain should move. So similarly, and also he acts. So similarly, the eternal time acts. He is a wonderful actor in this world by this is the representative of the Supreme Lord. So Vidura asked, what are the symptoms of eternal time? Similarly, Mother Devahudi asked in this chapter, so please describe them too in detail. So then we can see that in that the same chapter and the 10th chapter of 10th canto, third canto also, Maitreya Muni is explaining about these beautiful descriptions of the eternal time. Then Maitreya is saying that eternal time is the primal source of the interactions of the three modes of the material nature. We know that when the Pradhan and the Prakriti, so these are the two important aspects of this material world. Pradhan is the unmanifested nature of this material cosmic world, and Prakriti is the manifested nature of. So in order to manifest this Prakriti or this phenomenal world, the influence of the time factor is the eternal time factor is the most ingredient of this material nature or the Prakriti. That what we see this Prakriti in this form is because of that eternal time. When the eternal time is mixed with this Pradhan, that's where the Prakriti is manifested. So then that eternal time with the Prakriti, then three modes of material nature is manifested. So everywhere the influence of the time is there. Everywhere. So Vidura Maitreya is saying it is unchangeable and limitless. Eternal time can change, it's unchangeable. So as it says that there is no change for the change because of it is constantly changing, right? And similarly, the time cannot change. The influence of the time cannot change. It's always there. It always influences. And this way, Maitreya saying there's so many ways that the influence of the time is there in each and every element. So Maitreya says that there are different kinds of creations besides the one which naturally occurs due to the interactions of the modes. And these three kinds of modes of material nature is because of the eternal time. So time makes the things very clear for everybody's life. Even we can understand that, even it says that the eternal time is known as also in the text known as Kala Purush, or this Kala Purush is the embodiment of time. Embodiment of the time, or called Kala Purush. So even the basis of the Jyotish Shastra is based on this Kala Purusha. It's mentioned that even it is divided, the Kala Purusha, the body part of the Kala Purusha is divided into 12. That's where we can see that the 12 Rashis of. And even it is mentioned that the sun is the driving force and the sun is the heart of the Kala Purush, and the moon is the mind of the Kala Purush. So this Kala, the eternal time, has influence in everything. And also we can see that when Maitreya Muni was explaining about the various creations of this material nature from the agitation, from the sound, initially there was a sound in this ether, from the sound that ether generated, but how that ether generated, when the sound manifested and the influence of the time, just then the ether generated, or the sky is generated. From the sky, then what happens? Influence of the time, then the air manifested from that sky, just the influence of the time. When it's mixed with it, the time factor of the Supreme Lord, that invisible potency. From the air, that the fire manifested, that means when the electricity and this potency, and then it's mixed with that, the time factor, or that the potency of the Supreme Lord, invisible potency of the Supreme Lord, which moves everything. And that's just by mixed with it, like a catalyst, just mixed with the air, with that eternal time. This is what is Maitreya is meant to the Supreme, the Vidura. So this is the way that in every aspect of that, how the time is influencing, time is controlling, time is manifesting, and creation of everything, and annihilation of everything. As we know that the Brahma is mentioned as the creator. Really, this eternal time is the influence. which creates everything in this world. Maintaining, we know that Vishnu maintains everything in this world. But this explains that how that is manifesting because of Vishnu, the Supreme Lord himself, the Kala Purusha, he is the Vishnu form, and he maintains everything in his potency. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that Kalosmi, I am the time, right? And devours everything, and every living entity meet with the death because of the potency of this Kala Shakti, Kala Purush. And then we also see that the universal form of the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita. So we know that the five subject matter of Bhagavad Gita is that the Ishvara, then the Jiva, then the Prakriti, the material nature, then Kala, the eternal time, and the Karma. So it is here, except Karma, everything else is eternal. So eternal time, that's why Kala is referred as eternal time. There is no beginning and there is no end for the eternal time. So we know that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in another place also, it is mentioned that when the annihilation or the destruction of this material world. So as we know that this is also the influence of the time or eternal time, the annihilation. That's the time when the fire comes out from the mouth of Sangarshana. And that fire is known as Kalagni, or the Agni of the Kala, the time, the eternal time of the fire of the eternal time. So another name of the Sangarshana is called Kala Anala. Anala means also fire, the fire of eternal time. So this is the way that our scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam, is describing the influence of the time in so many. This is Supreme Lord himself. In every planets, every atom which moves, eternal time. So nothing can stop the eternal time. Even anybody thinks that we can control this eternal time. We cannot, because of time doesn't wait for us. So everybody is, as soon as a person takes birth, decided that how many breath that a person takes is decided by this eternal time. So how many breaths, is a person's life depends upon how many breath he takes. So that's why people tries to elongate their lifespan because of controlling their breath. So this is also by the eternal time. So that means when there is a breathing process and the exercise of the pranayama, controlling the breath, that means depends on how many breath a person, that's determined by the eternal time. So like that, on the annihilation, there are four kinds of pralaya that happens. There's a partial pralaya, atyantika pralaya, then there is naimittika, occasional, and so like that, and constant. There is a constant changes happens in this world, constant, which is very, and keep this changes happening in this world. This is all by the influence of that Supreme Lord, the influence of the time or the Kala Purusha. So this is the way the Kapila Dev explaining this to the Supreme, to Mother Devahudi. And here Srila Prabhupada mentioned the purport. So, but the helpless human being thinks that this just be there for some time is the purpose of this human living or human living entity. You don't understand this factor. That's also the Mother Devahudi is asking this because of this the knowledge, this transcendental knowledge will be revealed to everyone, so that we can understand that our position, our condition in this world, we are all subject to die in this world, as mentioned that in the teachings of Lord Kapila. Srila Prabhupada also mentioned in the purport that. So the Yudhishthira Maharaj been asked by the Dharmaraj or the Yaksha, asked what is the most amazing things in this world. So Yudhishthira Maharaj immediately replied that the most amazing things we can see in this world is that people are dying every day. But we think that we don't even come to that consciousness that I'm also going to die. And when the people forget this and seeing this, that it is amazing me very much most. So it's very, very important that we understand this factor. That's the same reason that this is revealed in Srimad Bhagavatam, how this creation, how this annihilation, how this maintenance, all is happening in this world. So we can see that even Yamaraj, And another name of Yamaraj is called Kala. So because of he also takes care of the death. So another influence or another, the potency of the Lord is also Yamaraj. So Yamaraj is none other than the sons of Surya Dev, right? Yama and Emi. So we can see that Yamaraj controls all this death. That's why he's known as Kala, another name of the Yamaraj. So since his childhood, Yamaraj was so justice. He was so dharmic. Means always follow the religious principle, and he never do injustice to anyone. Because of that, his nature, and he became the Yama, and the Lord appointed him as Yama. Of course, the Yama also, as it's mentioned that the Kapiladev, even Yamaraj, the Lord of the death, he gives that the death punishment to everyone, every living entity. But that Lord, that Yama also is subject to the death, because that is the influence of the time. Nobody can free from it. So that Yamaraj is also one time, even he was in the Kathopanishad, there is a section is called when explaining this all to the Nachiketas, a little boy came to Yamaraj. He asked this question: what is happens after the death? So this was appropriate question to Yamaraj. Yamaraj was initially not hesitating to answer these questions, because of this is a very big subject matter. And even Yamaraj was saying that even I am also subject, I am also controlled by this eternal time and the death. So many places it reveals like this, dear devotees. So what we can do that. So as understanding this, the eternal, the Lord, the Supreme Lord controls everything, and we forget that. So we think that we are going to live in this world eternally. So, but we forget that, we are ignorant of that. We are also being created in this world, and similarly, we are also annihilated one day. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned that one of the purport, and says that whatever we see yesterday is past. And that same past we see as a tomorrow, that is when it comes, that's a future, but when it comes tomorrow, it is past. And then similarly, everything changes. That it won't wait for us. So completely that it influences the time, but we completely ignorant of this. And because of our ignorance and forgetfulness, we completely we swayed away into this material nature, and completely lost ourselves. And then after repeatedly life after life after life after life, then we takes birth again. And who is controlling that again? That eternal time. And the repeated birth and death, in the Bhagavad Gita mentioned that Dehino asmin yada dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tada dehangara praptir dhiras tatra namukyadi. Like an babyhood to youthhood, youthhood to old age. Similarly, at the time of death, person take another body. And who controls this? This eternal time. When the person dies, who carries this settled body and the soul to the another body? The eternal time, the Kala Purusha or the Kala Chakra. That's why this samsara, the world is also known as samsara chakra. The wheel of chakra means the wheel of wheel. And the Kala Chakra, the wheel of time. Samsara Chakra means this material suffering is a wheel. It's repeated birth and death. Repeated birth and death. So we have this 8.4 million species of life repeatedly take birth and death, and then come back to that. Finally, we get this human form of life. That's why Govinda Das mentioned that. So everybody is fearful. In the previous verses mentioned that everybody is that fear, because of that fear of death. Why that fear of death? Because of that we are going to lose this material, the happiness, and we are so tied to this material nature. But when we take the devotional service, when we take the Supreme Lord, then it is Abhaya. So Govinda Das says that Bhaja Gure Mana Sri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charanara Vindare. Abhaya Charanara Vindare. Please take the lotus feet of Sri Nanda Nandana. So then we become fearless. And then because of, when we become the fearless, that's the only way that we can become fearless, when we take the lotus feet of Krishna. And that's our eternal duty. That's our param dharma. Savai pumsha paro dharmo edor bhakti radokshati. There is no other. So that is our param supreme duty, is that to take the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Abhay charanara vindare bhajagure. Engage in the loving devotional service at the lotus feet of that Supreme. Bhajagure mana Sri Nanda Nandana Abhaya charanara vindare. So that is, so otherwise we will be completely influenced by the eternal time in this material world. But as mentioned that in the spiritual realm, there is no influence of eternal time. So that's where when we come to the spiritual realm, when we engage in the loving devotional service, chanting the holy name, and yesterday in the class it was mentioned that a devotee is the supreme yogi. A devotee is the supreme yogi because he is absorbed into that the supreme personality of Godhead and always in the association of the Supreme Lord. In that association, then this time, the material time or the eternal time doesn't have the influence. So the living entity eternally will be associated with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, will come under the directions and injunctions of the eternal time in the form of death, and then we'll have to repeatedly takes birth after life, birth and death after life after life. This is called samsara chakra. But when we take this, the devotional service, and understand this and engage in loving devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then there is no influence of the eternal time, but then completely in the spiritual realm and then completely in association with the Supreme Lord. So this way, that Kapila Dev is concluding this and the importance of this eternal time, and understand this, how it influences and what we're supposed to do as a living entity. So this is the way that Kapila Dev is explaining the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. So let me stop here. Thank you so much, dear devotees, for joining today. Grandiraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanandi. Hare Krishna. So if there are any questions or comments or concerns, you can post it into the Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. We'd like to wish everybody a safe and Krishna conscious day, and from a long weekend ahead. July 4th, being celebrated here as Independence Day. So may we use our independence in serving the Supreme Lord, independent-minded free will in serving the Supreme Lord. We would like to offer our prayers to the Supreme Lord by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama.
Shri Nrsimha Jai Nrsimha Jai Jai Nrsimha Praladesha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Brinda Ugraveera
Mahavishnu Jalandam
Nrsimham Vishana Bhadra Nityam Navamiham. Nrsimha Bhagwan ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Let's offer our humble obeisances to all the Samar Vaishnavas, Mancha Kalpatarubhayasya Kripa Sindhu Bhayavacha
Patitanam Pavane
Pavane Bhayo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Vaishnavinda ki jai, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.
Hare Bol.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Bol. Hare Bol.
Thank you.